And a good Thursday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live on YouTube, Rumble, and X 24/7, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. And if you would be so gracious, appreciate a review, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Rate the show 5 stars. That goes a long way in helping us continue to grow and expand. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning is brought to you in part by the Law Group here in Wilmington. Visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. More from them coming up a little bit later on this morning. We have got what I think is a very underreported story coming out of the state auditor's office this morning that highlights an excessive waste of money in Western North Carolina. Let's set the stage on all of this. Hurricane Helene, not something that many folks are unfamiliar with. That storm ravaged and devastated Western North Carolina last September, causing some of the worst flooding in the West ever. I mean, at least 100 years, but you could make the argument it was the worst storm to ever affect portions of Western North Carolina, at least in more modern history. That storm barreled through the area, dropped so much rain, left so much devastation, took over 100 lives in North Carolina. Just a horrific storm that unfolded. And over the last 6+ months, we have watched a variety of things play out. Of course, in the immediate aftermath of the storm, you had private groups and private organizations alongside the state and federal government airdropping supplies and getting as much to the people that they need, whether we're talking, water, food, generators, gasoline, the things that you need in the immediate aftermath of the storm. Now, fortunately, we're far enough removed from the storm now where that immediate relief effort is done. The roads are back open. Folks now have access to traverse the western half of North Carolina. So we're in a much better spot, obviously, than we were right after the storm. So you've got these kind of two stages of, after a hurricane. You've got the immediate response, which is boots on the ground, rescuing people, trying to find them a place to stay temporarily. Those immediate needs, for the most part, have been met, at least for the vast majority of people. And then you start going into the longer-term recovery, right? There's still a lot of infrastructure that is damaged out west. There's still a lot of people that don't have access to city or county running water. There's still some folks, even to this day, that do not have electrical service out west. Almost everybody's restored, but some still very remote areas do not have power fully restored yet. So in an attempt to provide some accommodations to individuals, the state of North Carolina contracted with a company known as SLSCO, which is based in Galveston, Texas. And if you start doing some research on this company, this is one of the main things that they do, disaster response. And if you look at their website, they highlight some of the response efforts that they've taken after major storms. I would argue that at least everything that I've seen, this company is an expert in providing some of these response efforts. So this new report came out yesterday afternoon from State Auditor Dave Bolick's office. And with this report, it is raising some serious questions about how disaster relief is handled in the state. The report centers on the town of Swannanoa. That's in Buncombe County, a relatively remote area in Buncombe County, which suffered very, very severe damage from Hurricane Helene. President Trump visited Swannanoa back earlier this year, drew national attention thanks to his visit. So the state contracted with this company to establish what they were calling a community care center. They had a bunch of these community care centers across Western North Carolina. However, this morning we're just focusing on this one in Swannanoa. And the facility was set up like this. It offered basic services, including showers, laundry facilities, restrooms, internet access, and some essential supplies. This was not a FEMA shelter. This was not a place where people were living. This was kind of a place that you would go, you could relax for a couple of hours, get out of the sun, get into an air-conditioned or heated tent, just kind of get away from everything, take a nice warm shower, have access to some food that was brought in, just have some nice creature comforts in this facility out in Western North Carolina. So the facility operated for 189 days. It closed at the end of April of this year, which doesn't seem too excessive. Again, you still have a lot of work that has to go on out west. It operated for 189 days, and this is where the story gets real screwed up. In that 189 days that it was operating, this facility cost the taxpayers of North Carolina a whopping $27.4 million. In 189 days, SLSCO invoiced the state of North Carolina $27.4 million. You break that down, you are looking at an average daily cost of $145,217.77 per day. Not per week, not per month, $145,000 plus per day to operate this facility. That's an excessive amount of money, no matter how you look at it. And you might say, okay, well, $145,000 a day, if it was serving tens of thousands of people, maybe that actually makes a little bit of sense, right? You have to analyze that dollar figure, to look at that dollar amount and determine whether that was a good use of my and your money. We would need to have some details as to how many people were helped with this. Well, we have those details. According to the audit's report, employees that worked at this facility said that the daily usage only ranged between 40 and 60 individuals a day. Between 40 and 60 people a day. So you take that $145,000 plus and divide it by 60 at the high end, 60 people per day. You're talking about almost $2,500 per person per day to give them a shower, give them access to washers and dryers, internet, and a warm, cool, and dry place to just relax and hang out for a couple of hours. I am going to argue that that is a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. The state of North Carolina would have been better off handing people $2,500 checks every single day for the use of this facility than having it operate. This is such an excessive amount of money for a relatively small amount of people. Now, again, I'm glad the facility was there. I'm glad that the facility was able to operate. What I'm not happy with is the fact that the state let this run for almost 200 days at the tune of $145,000 per day, with only 40 to 60 people using it. Even at its peak, it was only servicing about 100 people per day. Think about what the people of Western North Carolina, the citizens that were affected by the storm, think what they could have done with a $2,500 a day check from the state. I mean, because that's essentially what we're talking about. Could those individuals have used $2,500 per day, cash or check from the state, to get themselves a shower, the ability to use a bathroom, and internet access? I believe it is safe to assume that they could have done that for significantly cheaper than $2,500 a day. They could have checked in or gotten into any hotel room in Western North Carolina for just a couple of $100. That would have given them access to the same facility, right? Shower, bathroom, internet access, TV, a climate-controlled place to relax and chill out for a couple of hours. That's what the state should have just done then. Why the hell were they spending $145,000 a day operating this facility in Western North Carolina? Everything being told, in the 189 days, the facility provided approximately 14,000 showers and 1,800 loads of laundry. Now, that's a significant amount. But again, at what cost? How did it possibly cost this amount of money to operate the facility? And we get some insight into this if we look at the report that is available over at the state auditor's office. So I've got the story this morning over at carolinajournal.com. Here is the pie chart, a great chart that the auditor's office put together showing these average daily costs and what was going on here. This is per day, this pie chart with $145,000 at the top. So the largest sum of money in all of this was spent on tents, renting these big white, kind of gazebo style tents that they had set up. They were spending almost $50,000 a day on the tents. $50,000 a day. How many tents could have been bought at the tune of $50,000 a day? An insane amount. The second highest dollar figure was shower and restrooms, the main purpose of the facility. But even with that, they were spending $42,000+ a day, almost $43,000 a day to operate showers and restrooms. Not washers and dryers yet. We're just talking about showers and restrooms. Another $21,000 per day to provide laundry service, washers and dryers to individuals. Then you had $16,000 a day being spent on hygiene kits. With you only servicing 40 to 60 people, I have no freaking idea how the state spent, or how this company spent $16,000 a day on hygiene. I mean, there's not enough people. With only 60 people going in there, there's no way that you could possibly spend $16,000 a day providing them with what? Toothpaste? Shampoo? I mean, there's a picture in the report, or as you go through the details of the report, they show some of the facilities that were, so they've got some pictures of what these hygiene kits look like. So you've got a black plastic bin here with some towels. Okay. You've got another plastic bin with some Ziploc bags that look like it's got some shampoo, maybe some conditioner in there. Okay. Then you've got some disposable flip-flops, some shower slides. These three things, towels, shampoo, and disposable flip-flops, at the tune of $16,000 per day? How is that even possible? You then look at on top of the $16,000 that was spent on hygiene kits, they were charging another $10,000 on medical footprint to provide people with, basic medical things, which I don't know that there's any pictures of that in the report itself. I don't think there is, but, basic medical stuff, you're talking about, I don't know, some Band-Aids, some ibuprofen, maybe some things like that. Nothing excessive. We're not talking about operating, a full doctor's office in this facility. Then you had $400 a day spent on security. That's, that is what it is. That's a cost. $1,700 a day for a site coordinator, and about $500 a day lighting the facility, the light towers that exist. How insane is this chart? When you look at this pie chart, I'll pull my picture off the screen so you can look at the chart in its entirety. How insane is this chart? $145,217.77 per day is what this company, SLSCO, was invoicing the state of North Carolina. What a waste of money. What a waste of valuable resources that could have been used for other things within the state. Because when you look at spending money, especially when the government looks at spending money, I would hope, and I would, assume, which you know what they say about assumptions, I would have assumed that the state, somebody within the state government, would have looked at these invoices and said, damn, is there a better way that we can spend $27.5 million helping folks in Western North Carolina better than operating this one facility in Swannanoa? One. By the way, from some of the research I did in putting this story together over at CarolinaJournal.com, there were like 9 other of these facilities. Now, I don't know if the auditor's office is looking at the other facilities. I hope that that's the case. But if this was happening at the Swannanoa site, Buncombe County advertised 8 or 9 of these facilities. Imagine what those costs were. We could be potentially looking at hundreds of millions of dollars being spent operating these facilities. And so the question that you have to ask yourself, and government should have asked itself, was what can we do better with this money? What can we do better with $27.4 million? There's no way that you can look at this pie chart. There's no way that you can look at the details of this story with an average daily cost of $145,000, only helping between 40 and 60 people a day, and believe that that's a good use of money from the state. There's just no way you can do that math. It doesn't add up. You could have written 60 people a almost $2,500 per person check and gotten far better service for it. I'm sure the facility was great. I'm sure the people in Western North Carolina appreciated having this facility available. No argument about that. But could that money have been spent better? And the answer is absolutely. On top of the $145,000 a day it costs to operate this site, invoices included in the report reveal that general workers at the facility were paid $87.30 an hour, while pod managers earned a whopping $145.50 per hour. All of this while they were also receiving a $215 per diem. This is insane. And it's noted very clearly in the auditor's report. Let me scroll back up to the top so I can provide this information to you. Here it is, right in the report. It says staff positions titled general workers and pod managers were paid an hourly rate of $87.30 and $145.50 respectively, and received $250 per diem. This expense was not included in the average daily cost. So you have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of additional dollars on top of the $27.4 million that the state has already spent on the site. And to State Auditor Dave Bolick's credit, as you would expect when the state government goes into an area and tries to figure out what's going on here, look at this. Look at this invoice. This is for the days of April 9th, or this is, I guess, the end of it, but April 9th, 10th, and 11th. Now, obviously, the employee names are hidden, but you're looking at tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on employees. And again, the facility was only serving 40 to 60 people a day. If this number ends up getting added into all of it, and you can see the totals here, the pod manager at Owen Pool, that's where the site operated. These people were collecting more than $1,700 a day. Multiple pod workers in the same day collecting between $1,700 and $1,000. This money was not included in the total, working 12-hour days. I mean, I guess makes sense. If you're getting paid $145 plus an hour, if you can put in a 12-hour day, you might as well. And the state was paying all of this out day after day after day for 189 days. It's absurd. It is a complete waste of taxpayer monies and resources. Look at this. I've got this final chart here. This is the total cost, at least. I don't know if this is the final cost or what it is close to, but you're looking at staff charges of another $750,000, at least according to this invoice sent from SLSCO to North Carolina Emergency Management. $773,000 for pod managers and general workers. Between $145 an hour standard rate time to over $218 per hour overtime. $750,000 being spent for staff at the site that the state was already spending $145,000 a day on. It's insane. It's completely absurd. And it's exactly what's wrong with government. Now, Dave Bolick said in response to this report, this was his quote in the press release yesterday afternoon. He writes, "In the middle of a disaster, providing a warm shower, laundry facilities to wash clothes, and a place to rest is responsive to the public need. That said, the government must always be cognizant of costs and routinely assess if we are making the most out of our tax dollars. But the sad reality is, while the state auditor says that, and I'm in full agreement with him, it's obvious that the state of North Carolina was not interested in doing that. This company, SLSCO, which I don't know a whole lot about, there's very limited information online. This is what they do. You can go to their website and see, disaster response. That's their big thing, and they've got their case studies and the projects that they've worked on. The state contracted with them, and they took the state for a ride. I mean, they invoiced the state for one facility $27+ million, almost $27.5 million to operate this facility. The report from the state auditor's office shows, and this is also highlighted in the invoice as well. It says, or in the audit, the Office of the State Auditor estimates that the total cost to have provided $20 vouchers for laundry services would have only been $360,000. So the state could have, if again the goal was to provide laundry services, the state could have just given people $20 Visa gift cards and called it a day. Because what was done, it cost an estimated $220, not including labor, per load of laundry. $220 to wash some clothes. It's disgusting. It's completely uncalled for, and it is a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. People in Western North Carolina could have used $27.4 million to, I don't know, rebuild their house, get the roads fixed in their communities, get their downtown areas back and vibrant and operating so that small businesses can operate. That money could have been used for that. Instead, it was pissed away operating a shower and laundry facility at the tune of more than $145,000 per day. That's what the money was used for instead. This is what's wrong with government. It's not their money, so they don't care. I'll say it again. It's not their money. And because it's not their money, they really don't care. Nobody in their right mind would spend this amount of money operating this facility every single day. No business would do that. No household would do that. No charity would even do it, because charities have finite resources as well, even though many of them are nonprofits. No charity would have spent $145,000 per day operating this facility. It's a complete waste of money. It's a complete and total waste of money. And the report just goes on and on and on, showing what's going on here. It's you could say, this is unbelievable. I don't think so at all. I think this is par for the course for state government. Here's a utilization chart showing the shower and laundry services and how things were being utilized. Owen Pool, that was the facility that was operating in Swannanoa. So here's some of the recommendations. The services provided by a community care station are responsive in the immediate aftermath of a natural disaster. But analysis and monitoring of cost, use, and need should have been more frequently conducted, particularly in the case which costs running over $145,000 per day. Planning for future disaster response should include contingencies for this type of facility. Although the community care station opened on October the 23rd, 2024, tracking of utilization of showers and laundry did not begin until November of 2024. Tracking should have been on the onset to better understand the service's utilization and demand. Detailed records should be kept so officials responsible for allocation of resources can make timely and effective decisions to serve the most people in the most effective manner. Now, I'm really pissed off about this whole thing for a variety of reasons. First of all, we are continually talking about the state of North Carolina and how their budget negotiations are ongoing in the North Carolina House and Senate right now. And we're hearing from people like Governor Josh Stein about how the General Assembly needs to stop lowering the tax rate so that they can allocate more money for Western North Carolina. They need to send millions, billions of more dollars out to the western half of the state, hundreds of millions of dollars. And while I want to see that money be sent out west, when I see a report like this, my gut reaction says, why the hell would we send any more money out west? The state has already proven that it is incapable of dealing with recovery efforts in the western half of the state. With this rapid response report from the state auditor's office yesterday, it proves that the state is not serious about being good stewards of the money that has been allocated. The General Assembly has already allocated more than $1.5 billion for Western North Carolina. How much of that has been wasted on facilities like this? How many hundreds of millions of dollars have been wasted for inefficient facilities that are not serving broad numbers of people? I would assume, based on everything that I learned in doing research for this story, that number is significantly high. That this is probably going to be, I hope it doesn't end up being the case, but there's a very real risk and a very real thought that something like this is going to come up in many other locations. That there were a plethora of these sites in Western North Carolina, and how many of these sites operated, and at what cost. I've got an image here. This is from the Buncombe County government back in December of last year. They were operating, in this graphic, they show 4 different facilities open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. At the Morgan Hill Baptist Church, Bethel United Methodist Church, Owen Pool, that's the one that we're talking about in Swannanoa, and another one at the Fairview Ingalls. 4 of these sites. Is there a possibility that all of these sites operated with these same costs? I would suspect that's probably a pretty good assumption. I don't think it's a far stretch to assume that similar amounts of money were spent at these other sites. So all of this added up, you could be talking about hundreds of millions of dollars spent on these facilities. And for what? For 40 people to take a shower and run some shirts through a laundry machine? I agree that those people needed those services, no question about it. Just give them cash then. Just give them a couple $100 and tell them to go find a way to wash their clothes and take a shower. Just go to a hotel. Go to a laundromat. Go to any other facility that operates this stuff. That's the issue that I have. That's what pisses me off so much, is we are going to hear over the next couple of weeks Democrats like Josh Stein talking about the importance of sending more money out to the western half of North Carolina when money has been sent and this is how it's been used. That's what pisses me off more than anything else. The state had a blank check to provide hurricane relief, and they did exactly what I would have expected them to do. Pick whatever contractor was available, at no cost did it matter, and continue to operate it well beyond when the need was actually there. And so that's the situation that we're in this morning. Joseph Harris, who is a fiscal policy analyst at the John Locke Foundation, provided me a quote for this story, and he wrote this. While it appears that the community care center in Swannanoa was created with well-meaning motives, programs should be measured by their results rather than their intentions. Spending $27.4 million to provide 14,000 showers and 18,000 loads of laundry demonstrates an extremely suboptimal allocation of resources. Due to the substantial damage in the western part of the state and the large amount of unmet financial needs, it is paramount that the available taxpayer funds are spent on projects and programs that maximize benefits for hurricane victims. For instance, with an average cost of $250,000 per home, that $27.4 million could have been spent, that was spent on the center, could have instead funded the construction of new homes for approximately 110 families displaced by Helene. So instead of operating this facility, they could have built 110 homes and put 110 families into facilities. We're not talking about 110 people. We're talking about 110 homes with ranging from 1 to 4, 5, 6 people potentially in one facility. Would that have been a better use of taxpayer funds? Would that have been a better use of the nearly $1.5 billion that the General Assembly has already allocated for Western North Carolina. Sitting here talking to you this morning, I feel that that absolutely would have been a better use of that money. The reason I wasn't surprised or shocked that this report came out the way that it did is because, unfortunately, the state of North Carolina has a really poor track record when it comes to hurricane recovery. They have a really poor track record of doing it. You're familiar with NCOR, the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency. That entity is still in the process of providing home repairs or building new homes for people suffering from Hurricanes Matthew and Hurricane Florence. Hurricane Matthew happened almost a decade ago. Hurricane Florence happened in 2016? 2017? Storm happened many, many years ago. So this NCOR entity, which Governor Roy Cooper started up, it was his baby, has been mismanaged from the start. We have found out over the last couple of months that they have a budget deficit of about, just $300 million. And meanwhile, you still have hundreds of families that are not back in their homes in eastern North Carolina. John is commenting saying Florence was 2018. So 2018, Hurricane Matthew was maybe 2015 or 2016. So you're looking at storms that have happened over the past decade. NCOR, baby of Roy Cooper, great entity to spin up, has spent, in some cases, almost a decade rebuilding somebody's home. Not only are those people still not back in their homes, NCOR also doesn't have the money to finish the work because they mismanage their money so bad that they're $300 million in the hole. So the state of North Carolina, unfortunately, has a horrific track record of dealing with these issues. In large part, I think it's because there's just no accountability. This is why statewide elections like the auditor's office are so freaking important. And they don't get the sexy spotlight that the governor's race gets or the presidential race or congressional races. This is why positions in the Council of State, like the state auditor, are so important. I can promise you that if Jessica Holmes, who was previously the auditor after Beth Wood resigned her post and ran against Dave Bolick, if Jessica Holmes was in the auditor's office right now, we would not be talking about this report this morning. I can guarantee you, I'll bet you every dollar I have, this report would not be out this morning. Why? Because it paints a terrible picture for the state government. It shows their inability to manage what I will argue are very finite resources as it relates to taxpayer dollars. The state doesn't have a money tree. They don't have unlimited money to pull from. And so when they waste $27.5 million giving people the opportunity to take a shower and use the bathroom in Swannanoa, it really makes you wonder, why is the state so inefficient? It really makes you wonder, why is government so broken? And broken is really, I think, the only way to describe it. Because nobody else can justify or would be able to justify or use any sort of math to justify this cost. No charity, no business, no private individual, nobody would look at this amount of money and say, this makes sense. But the government did. Now, this isn't in the report, but my speculation here is that the grift that was going on out here got caught. The state auditor's office visited 2 times, April the 14th and April the 24th, so within 10 days of each other back in the latter parts of April. Right after their last visit, it was announced that the facility would be shutting down. And it shut down at the end of April, just a couple of days after their final visit. Now, that could be completely planned, but there does seem to be a little bit of a coincidence there, no? The state auditor's office is coming in and starting to poke around as to how much money is being spent at a facility, what's actually going on here. And lo and behold, less than 2 weeks later after their first visit, the facility is shut down. If the state auditor's office didn't visit, I think it's fair to say it might still be open right now, costing taxpayers, once again, another $145,000+ a day. It's absurd. This is why people are so distrustful of government. This is why when we talk about, like in New Hanover County, there's this big debate. We talked about it on Monday or Tuesday going on over the budget. And when we ask and the question is asked of find ways to save money, this is the kind of crap we're talking about. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about small town government, state government, municipal government. This kind of crap exists everywhere because they don't really care. There is no incentive for them to be good stewards of your money. There is no incentive for them to save resources. They're just all in the business of spending it. So when I hear Democrats here in New Hanover County on the county commission talk about how there's no other cuts that can be made, this is why I call bullshit on that. It's why I think it's complete BS. This is the kind of way in which government operates. These are the kind of contracts that are played out. I mean, give you another example. The Alt-Lenin Courthouse down on the Riverwalk in Wilmington. How many years after Hurricane Florence did they have dehumidifiers sitting behind that building, pumping into the building? It was like 5 years that these dehumidifiers were sitting behind the federal courthouse building, operating 24/7, 365. There were these big, ugly, yellow pipes running up to the windows in all of the buildings. Fortunately, that facility is open again now. But it cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of, or tens of millions of dollars to operate that facility, to just have these dehumidifiers running seemingly forever at the facility. If your home was flooded, you would get some dehumidifiers in there, get everything dried out, and get them out as quickly as possible because you have to pay for that every day. When a business deals with a fire or a flood or needs some sort of remediation done after an event, they get the people in, they get the work done, they get them out. There's an incentive to do that. Time is money. And when you've got a contractor or rented equipment sitting in your facility for weeks, months, and years on end, it costs a significant amount of money. Government just doesn't care. So they can afford and justify how it's acceptable to operate this facility at the tune of $145,000 a day, and they just don't care. They shrug their shoulders and say, yeah, well, that's government. Yeah, it's government. It's a complete and total waste of taxpayer dollars. Think about how this money could have been used to actually help people in Western North Carolina. More than 100 homes could have been built. More than 110 families could have had the opportunity to have a brand new home built with what this facility was operating at. It's disgraceful. It's disgusting. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it is not surprising. This is par for the course and completely acceptable as it relates to government. Huge shout out to State Auditor Dave Bolick for blowing the whistle on this. I am very fearful that there are many more of these facilities that are going to come out in the near future. And with that being the case, I think we are probably looking at what can only be described as a major scandal potentially unfolding in North Carolina. If it's true that more of these sites operated at a similar price point, you are going to have probably a pretty serious investigation go on as to how hundreds of millions of dollars were allocated and spent to provide this level of service. There is a full story this morning over at carolinajournal.com. I'm the author of it. The headline, Swannanoa's $27 million storm relief center under fire after a state audit. The full link to the audit is in there. There's some charts and pictures. I encourage you to spread this thing around on social media because this is the kind of government waste, fraud, and abuse that we talk about. This is the kind of bloated, ridiculous government service that we're talking about. So again, shout out to Dave Bolick. Glad that he was able to shine a little bit of a light on this and provide some details. I want to thank the law group here in Wilmington for their continued support of the show this morning. When legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the law group here in Wilmington. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across Eastern North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating real estate transactions, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense, the law group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved promptly. Great news, they are located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com, a list of all of their services and a great blog where they discuss a variety of legal challenges. Give them a call, 910-251-6088, or visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. If you are in the position where you've got any legal questions, I would encourage you to reach out to the Law Group. They are supporting the show here this morning. We want to continue to support them. lawgroupnc.com or 910-251-6088. We've got a lot more to get into this morning as the Nick Craig Show rolls on, streaming live this morning, 7 a.m. on YouTube, Rumble, and X, and 24/7, wherever you get your podcasts. And welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Thanks for spending part of your Thursday morning with us, whether you're catching us live or listening after the fact via podcast. Turning our attention to some national news this morning, President Donald Trump making a pretty big announcement yesterday evening, announcing that he is going to set forward an investigation into Biden's executive actions and some of those Autopen allegations that you've probably been hearing about over the last couple of months. President Donald Trump has ordered his administration to investigate whether officials in President Joe Biden's administration misled the American people about Biden's mental acuity and illegally exercised presidential power. A memorandum signed by President Donald Trump late yesterday, quote, directs an investigation into whether certain individuals conspired or deceived the public about Biden's mental state and unconstitutionally exercised the authorities and responsibilities of the president. In a fact sheet produced by the White House yesterday, they cited longstanding public reporting across Biden's single term in office, questioning his mental acuity and fitness for the job. The statement said that the investigation would focus on whether there were unlawful misuses of the Autopen, a device that creates a essential presidential signature. It's a way for multiple things to be signed. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an auto pen. The fact sheet reads, the combined nature of Biden's documented cognitive decline and the repeated use of an autopen raises serious questions about the legitimacy of his actions. The Department of Justice ruled back 20 years ago in 2005 that providing a verbal directive to sign a document with an autopen was an acceptable alternative to physically signing a document. So there is some legal, I guess, so what you'll call precedent there as it relates to using an autopen. However, there is the question about using them for things like pardons, if that is acceptable. And did Joe Biden even actually agree to some of these things? So the White House has a full fact sheet on that this morning, and it's been an interesting discussion. It's been an interesting thing to follow, and I will be very curious to see if and when any additional details come out of that. Not a whole lot this morning, but definitely an interesting story to track. And to our final story this morning. If things weren't bad for the left, well, I mean, they continue to seemingly get worse day in and day out. We had the Jake Tapper book that came out a couple of weeks ago. We talked about that. Whatever the title of it was, the Unseen Inside the President's Final Days in Office. This Jake Tapper book, which documented the mental decline of President Joe Biden and all of the drama that associated because of that situation unfolding. He, of course, spent the entire presidential election covering for Joe Biden. He spent the entire presidential election covering for the guy that he agreed with politically, even though Jake Tapper's come out and said, I didn't vote for Biden or Trump. I think they were both terrible candidates. He spent his entire time at CNN covering for Joe Biden, making a fool of people like Laura Trump, who went on that network and asked serious questions about Joe Biden's mental acuity, which we all saw unfold in July of last year. We all saw it, right? At this point, it was no longer a secret. It was no longer a right-wing conspiracy. We all watched that debate and watched what seemed to be a president that was struggling mentally, talking about how he killed Medicare or beat Medicare, whatever that was supposed to mean. Would be in the middle of a thought and just stop talking. It would just not even end a sentence, just trail off, and then he was done, throwing it back to the moderator. Staring into space the entire time, like seemingly he had no idea where he was. So Jake Tapper released that book. He is now the great hero of Joe Biden. We learned yesterday that former President Joe Biden's White House press secretary and Karine Jean-Pierre, that she noted in an announcement yesterday that she has officially left the Democrat Party and is set to release a tell-all book on her time in the administration later this year. These people are shameless. These people have absolutely no moral code. If you thought Jake Tapper was bad covering for President Joe Biden, can you imagine what Karine Jean-Pierre did? If you think Jake Tapper was carrying water for the administration, you remember what the press secretary did? You remember the kind of way that she interacted with people like Peter Doocy from Fox News and other folks? So she's got a new book that's supposedly coming out in October called Independent. She released this yesterday. She put a video up on her Instagram where she was talking about this. Let's roll that and see what the former press secretary has to say about why she's leaving the Democrat Party. Let's take a look at the video here from her.
Jean-Pierre, and I am the author of a new book that's coming out this fall called Independent. It's coming out on October 21st, so please do grab it. And the reason I wrote this book, coming out of the White House, serving as White House press secretary was an honor and a privilege. But since I have left, the people that come up to me, strangers that come up to me just across the country as I'm traveling, and sometimes right in my neighborhood, at a grocery store, supermarket, airport, my daughter's school, the number one question they ask me is, Karine, how do we get out of this? How do we protect our democracy? How do we protect vulnerable communities among us? What do we do next? Because we don't have answers here. That's what they ask me. And this is my answer. And what I mean by that is, in an era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth. And here's how I will lay it out to you. I think we need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes and not be so partisan. And the way that I see moving forward in this space that we're in right now is, if you are willing to stand side by side with me, regardless of your how you identify politically, and as long as you respect the community that I belong to and vulnerable communities that I respect, I will be there with you. I will move forward with you. And that is, I think, so important. So this book, Independent, it's about looking outside of boxes, not just always being in a partisan stance. And how do we move forward together in a compassionate way, in a way that really, truly cares about people? October 21st.
Wow, great. So she spent years not thinking outside the box, covering, and that's her job. She's the press secretary. Her job is absolutely to provide cover for the administration, right? That's her job. And by the way, I don't envy her job. Can you imagine the miserable position that she was in? Having to stand in front of cameras, not every day, because typically you don't have a press briefing every day, but a couple of times a week. Having to stand in front of the media and try and cover for the disaster that was the Biden administration. I mean, that's got to be a tough job. So, not taking anything away from that. That must have been a pretty brutal position. Admittedly, once she put herself in the position of. So I don't know that I have any sympathy for her. I don't know that I feel bad that she was in this position. But now she has decided that she is leaving the Democrat Party and is going to have this brand new tell-all book about what really went on. She was in on the cover-up. There's no argument about that at all. And now, similar to Jake Tapper, she's going to use this to exploit Democrats and the idea that people are coming up to her and, well, how do we save our democracy? Really? You're at the grocery store? People are coming up to you and saying, oh my God, Karine Jean-Pierre, help me. How do we save our democracy? Folks, I get asked that as well. I'm out minding my own business out at the local park. I was at Food Lion yesterday. I had dozens of people come up to me and say, Nick, help me. How do we how do we save our democracy? What a bunch of garbage. It's not true. There's no way. She's walking around her neighborhood, walking her dog, and people are running up to her to ask her, how do we save the communities that are being affected? I mean, it's so ridiculous. A great point is being brought up in our Rumble chat. Moral compass. Find another job if you know it's not right. No sympathy. You're exactly right. But the reality is these people don't have any moral compass. They will spend years, like Jake Tapper and Karine Jean-Pierre did, covering for the administration. Karine Jean-Pierre is now leaving the Democrat Party, going independent, and now writing this tell-all book in which she'll profit likely millions of dollars from. She has no moral compass. Nobody that worked in the previous administration had any moral compass. And so here's just a quick example of Karine Jean-Pierre in action when she was the White House press secretary. Take a listen. Let's try that again. Take a listen.
It would seem that people in this White House knew that President Biden was slipping, and it was hidden from the American people. So who ordered White House officials to cover up a declining president?
I know that is a narrative that you love, and
No.
Wait,
10 days.
hold on.
He did a press conference at NATO. I'm in it. There's all these things that I need
on.
to finish, and then 10 days later, I'm dropping out.
Okay, wait, you're asking me like multiple questions here. Let me wait. First of all, there's been no cover-up. I want to be very clear about that.
Oh,
I
really?
know that's the narrative that you all want. Wait, no, you can't. Okay.
I've been with President Biden for 5 years.
Are you going to let me answer the question?
Would you at least admit that the debate was not just a bad night?
Wait. Can I answer the question?
Yes.
All right. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
So condescending.
Your first question. It is not a cover-up.
No.
I know that is the narrative that you all want. It is not. I'm going to say this again, and you're going to hear directly from the president. I hope you listen tonight. I think it's going to be incredibly powerful and important. The Oval Office, presidents, as you know, when they make speeches from the Oval Office, it's because there are important moments that they want to directly make sure that the American people hear from them, and it's obviously going to be done in prime time. I would listen to the president. And then what I will say is that it is not easy making a decision that the president made on Sunday.
So this is obviously right after Joe Biden was staying in the race. He was not going to drop out, then to only decide to drop out, and his vice president just magically becomes the nominee. That was the way in which Karine Jean-Pierre operated. Now, has she actually had a come to Jesus moment where she's realized her faults? Based on the Instagram video that we just watched and her announcing the book, I don't think so. I don't believe that she's had some great revelation and she has any sort of, she feels bad about what she did, that she's got any regrets as to how she operated and that she stayed in that position. I don't think that's the case at all. It doesn't seem obvious that that's the case. So now she's just another one of these grifters on the left who's getting a book out, is going to go on some big national book tour and talk about this. I hope Megyn Kelly interviews her. Megyn Kelly interviewed Jake Tapper and the guy from Axios who wrote the book, and it was a great interview. She hammered them, not unjustly, wasn't rude or nasty to them, but called them out on their nonsense, called them out on the BS that they were peddling for years on end. And I'm very curious if the illustrious former press secretary is going to do the same thing. I mean, she's got to sell the book. Posting it on Instagram is not going to be enough to do that. So Karine Jean-Pierre, she's obviously out. She's now announcing that she is no longer going to be a partisan, that she is going to think outside the box. She doing a commercial for Taco Bell, right? Think outside the bun. That's what she's going to start doing. She's denied allegations. She's talked about how this wasn't true. There was no cover up. There obviously was one. And now she's going to expose it in a book. Great. Sounds great. I look forward to purchasing it and reading it. Not. These people on the left are just absolutely shameless. Absolutely shameless. Speaking of being shameless, if you are interested in supporting the show financially and getting access to daily show notes and more, you can head on over to patreon.com/Nick Craig. Support the show financially and keep us broadcasting live here each and every weekday morning. Once again, thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support. LawGroupNC.com is their website. We're back with you tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show. Have a great Thursday.